Good afternoon, and greetings to everybody watching the match. My name is Ronnie Lorange, and together with the team of the Quarks Foundation organizing this ninth edition of the Inter-University Law Debate Tournament, so the edition 2026, we are very pleased to have two teams starting their competition, day one of the group phase. So we have the University of Lusaka in Zambia, and we have the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens in Greece. So these two teams will have their first match on the topics they received a week ago, and of course we send greetings as well to the judge who will be watching the match. So many thanks for your time. So before we start with, of course, the match, we want to have the presentation of the teams themselves, and afterwards, of course, allocation of the positions. So first of all, I would like to give the floor alternatively between the debaters to Miss Elizabeth Mukeya. Welcome. It seems that Miss Mukeya in Zambia there is a camera problem or connection. Yeah. Yes, Miss Mukeya, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, so you can introduce yourself.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Elizabeth Mukeya. I'm a third-year law student at the University of Lusaka, and I'm glad to be participating in this international Hague debate. Thank you so much.
Thank you and welcome. We have as well in Athens Miss Alexandra Sikara. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm an undergraduate law student in the University of Athens, and I'm really happy to participate today.
Thank you, welcome. And we have in Lusaka as well Mr. Dawn Venesi Kabando. Welcome, Miss. Sorry. Miss Dawn Venesi Kabando. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, my name is Dawn Wenasi Kabondo. I'm a second-year law student at the University of Lusaka. I'm so excited to do this. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. We have as well in Athens Mr. Andreas Christopoulos. Welcome.
Hello, it's a great honor to be here with you. I'm currently in my fourth year of studies at law school in Athens. Great to participate today.
Thank you, welcome. And we have Mr. Tandomingen Ndlela in Lusaka.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tando Miguel Ndlela, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm a second lawyer student at the University of Lusaka.
Thank you, welcome. And finally, Miss Irini Kataki in Athens. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Irini Kataki. I am a second year law student in the University of Athens, Greece, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you. We send greetings as well to your coach, Miss in Lusaka, so Professor Joy Kitiwe Zimba Mutale and Emrika Muzakuzi. So the topic which was sent a week ago to both teams was states have an obligation to cooperate in regulating cross-border digital and knowledge-based economies. So now you will see the wheel by my colleague. So this is a wheel to randomize the positions. There are two positions possible to be in favor for both teams or to be against the motion. So now my colleague will activate the wheel and we'll know which team will be in favor and against. The team in favor will be starting the match with the first introduction. So the result is that the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens will be against the motion. As a consequence, that will be the University of Lusaka will be in favor of the motion for this match. Concretely, it means that the University of Lusaka will be starting the match with the first introduction, defending the position that states have an obligation to cooperate in regulating cross-border digital and knowledge-based economies. In the meanwhile, the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens will do the other introduction, which will be states do not have an obligation to cooperate in regulating cross-border digital and knowledge-based economies. So now you have 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we'll hear the introduction by the University of Lusaka. Can close camera and microphone.
Thank you, everyone. Your time for final preparation has now concluded. We'll be starting by hearing the opening statements by the team in favor. Before we go there first, short reminder, you will have visual cues for your time, meaning my colleague, Ms. Becchetti, will show you a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left, and red card when your speaking time has concluded. Also, just a tiny technical note. In case the speaker's audio is weak, I would kindly ask that everyone but the speaker and timekeeper close their cameras. Of course, only do this if the speaker's audio is weak. All right, without further ado, University of Lusaka, you have the floor for 4 minutes for your opening statement.
Am I audible?
You are.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be beginning my speech in the reverse countdown of 3, 2, 1. Will all levels of seniority be highly observed in this House of Debate? Well, our motion under discussion is states have an obligation to cooperate in regulating cross-border digital and knowledge-based economies. For the purpose of this debate, the following to be our key terms. When we look at obligation in the context of today's debate, we have defined it as a duty that is recognized by international law arising from treaties, customary international law, as well as the general principles of international law. To cooperate means to coordinate and work together as states through joint enforcement mechanisms. And when we talk about regulating, this involves making and enforcing rules that are enforceable across various states. When we look at digital economy, this involves internet business, tech platforms, digital trade, as well as e-commerce. When we look at what is involved in knowledge-based economies, we are talking about things such as intellectual property, artificial intelligence, research, education, as well as innovations. Now, our defined motion and steam proposition for this debate is that states are legally required under international law to engage in cooperative regulation of digital and knowledge-based economy activities whose impact transcends national borders. Well, in today's debate, we are not saying that states should give up sovereignty or have identical laws, or better still, replace their national regulation. But rather, our stance in this debate is that without cooperation, regulation then becomes ineffective, fragmented, as well as unjust. And whereas cooperation then strengthens regulation rather than weakens it. And just like in our times, we see that sovereignty today is exercised through cooperation and not in isolation. Now, our main arguments in today's debate as team proposition are human rights that I will discuss. We'll also look at economic development that will be discussed by my second speaker, as well as transnational harm that will be discussed by my third speaker. So when we look at the aspect of human rights, we see that people's rights currently are inadequately protected because regulation is in isolation while the harm spreads across the globe. So we see that we currently have a fragmented regulatory landscape where most countries regulate only laws within their own boundaries and territories. For instance, we look at how the United States has their own privacy laws. We also look at how China has their heavy surveillance laws. This in itself shows how states are regulating rules in isolation. And we see that this in itself leaves individuals exposed and unequally protected, especially those in developing countries. Now, when we look at what is provided for under Article 1, Sub-Article 3 of the United Nations Charter, it tells us that there is a principle of international cooperation in promoting as well as encouraging human rights. Additionally, when we look at what is provided for under Article 55 as well as 56 of the United Nations Charter, it tells us that states have not only pledged to take a separate but also a joint action to be able to promote universal respect for human rights. Now, this already, you may wonder what rights are then we discussing about. So we're looking at rights such as the right to privacy, the right to development, as well as the right of freedom of expression. So I'd like us to look at the example of the case of Data Protection Commission versus Facebook and Max Kerms. Now, when we look at this case, we see how the EU as well as the United States data transfer was invalidated. And the reason why this was invalidated was because the US surveillance did not adequately protect for EU citizens. This in itself shows that indeed cross-border data transfer can violate privacy rights, which in turn shows that it is infringing on humans' rights to privacy. So indeed, we can see that the United Nations framework already recognizes that human rights protection is a matter of international cooperation. And therefore, as team proposition, we believe that without cooperation, regulation then becomes ineffective. And we also say that states do have an obligation to ensure that human rights are adequately protected, especially considering states that have a weaker system. So in today's arguments, we may see that team opposition may come to this debate and tell us that privacy is a personal right. Why then should states cooperate it? Our response is very simple and direct. We believe that privacy may belong to an individual, but the obligation to protect privacy or the right to privacy is a state duty, as it has already been articulated under the United Nations principles. And additionally, we believe that one state on its own cannot be able to protect the violation, and only cooperation can be able to ensure that we protect violation of such rights and ensure human rights protection.
Thank you.
Team opposition may also come to this debate to talk about how it may undermine that sovereignty in international law. With these few points, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you. Your speaking time has concluded. We'll now hear the opening statement by the National Kapodistrian University. You also have 4 minutes.
I will be the first speaker. So, Honorable Chair, distinguished judges, ladies and gentlemen, this motion asserts the existence of a binding legal obligation. The burden on the affirmative side is to prove necessity, not desirability. We submit that while cooperation may be beneficial, international law does not impose a general legal obligation to cooperate in regulating digital and knowledge-based economies. In my speech, I will present 3 arguments. Argument first, international law does not establish a general obligation to cooperate in economic regulation. Under the Article 38 of the ICG statute, legal obligations arise from treaties, customary international law, or general principles. No international treaty establishes a universal duty to cooperate in regulating digital or knowledge-based economy as such. Article 55 and 56 of the UN chapter promote cooperation. However, in Southwest Africa 1966, the ICG clarified that charter proposals do not create self-executing binding obligation. Cooperation language alone does not create legal duty. So there is no general treaty-based obligation requiring digital regulatory cooperation. While it's true, most cooperation clauses are programmatic, while it's matter, legal obligation cannot be presumed, therefore no binding duty exists. Now I will proceed to my second argument. Sovereignty preserves regulatory autonomy. Article 2, paragraph 1 of the UN Charter guarantees sovereign equality. Article 2, paragraph 7 protects domestic jurisdiction. In Nicaragua versus United States, 1986, the ICG reaffirmed that states retain autonomy over their internal economic system absent consent. Digital regulation, taxation, innovation, competition, data governance fall within domestic jurisdiction unless states explicitly agree otherwise. Imposing a general obligation to cooperate would improperly restrict sovereign regulatory autonomy. While it's true, states design digital policies differently by choice, while it's matter, regulatory diversity support innovation and development, therefore, sovereignty excludes a mandatory duty to cooperate. Now I will proceed to my third argument. State practice demonstrates voluntary, not obligatory cooperation. Customary international law requires consistent state practice accompanied by opinion juris. In North Sea Continental Shelf 1969, the ICG held that practice alone, without belief in legal obligation, is insufficient. Global digital governance is highly fragmented. States cooperate selectively in certain forums, but retain divergent regulatory approaches. This demonstrates discretion, not legal compulsion. So states' practice confirms that cooperation remains voluntary. While it's true, states opt in and out of cooperation of cooperative frameworks, while it's matter, voluntariness preserves flexibility. Therefore, since cooperation is optional in practice, no obligation exists. Cooperation in digital governance may be wise. but benefit is not obligation. In the absence of treaty law, established custom non-binding general principles imposes such a duty. The proposition must fall. Thank you.
Thank you. We have now heard the opening statements from the two teams. We'll proceed for the first rebuttal. University of Lusaka, you have 2 minutes.
Am I visible and audible?
You are.
Okay, I will start in reverse countdown of 3, 2, 1. Allow me to begin by assessing what the opposition has said. They have said no legal obligation to cooperate. However, obligation is not limited to explicit treaties. International law recognizes positive duties where harm is foreseeable, as seen in the 12 smelter case. When harms are cross-border effective, protection requires cooperation. Cooperation strengthens enforcement. Sovereignty without enforcement is symbolism alone. Now, this debate also comes down to accountability. Right now, digital giants are making billions from our countries and transferring profits to low profit jurisdictions. Now, currently under the law, it allows for a company to operate in another country with zero physical presence and pay zero tax in return. That is not innovation, that is exploitation. The opposition argues sovereignty, but is it sovereignty if a country's tax system can be bypassed by a server in another country? International tax scholars have said and affirmed that there is no sovereignty where a country cannot enforce their own laws. Now, look at what happens when cooperation fails, such as in UK and India, where there was panic and unilateral taxes were introduced, such as the Google tax and the equalization levy, where experts found that uncoordinated measures created double taxation and legal uncertainty. That is why the OECD created the BEPS project, which was described as a turning point. Also, why the European Union introduced for a company where a company has over 7 million in revenue and over 100,000 users to pay taxes to that specific country, right? Now, each country can regulate independently. That we disagree to. Digital platforms operate simultaneously in multiple jurisdictions. Criminal data and profits move across borders instantly. One weak jurisdiction undermines all others. We have found that obligation is not limited to explicit treaties. Such treaty that exists is the WTO-GATS. As the opposition said, they asked for us to give a legal obligation. I submit the WTO-GATS as it provides a legal mandate for cooperation. Article 5 specifically obligates developed countries.
Thank you. Your speaking time is over. We'll now proceed to hear the first rebuttal in the against position. You have 2 minutes. National Kapodistrian University of Athens.
Ladies and gentlemen, Team Proposition argues that cooperation is necessary to ensure the protection of fundamental human rights. In reality, protecting human rights does not automatically make cooperation mandatory. States can fulfill obligations like privacy or freedom of expression through domestic measures and targeted bilateral or regional cooperation. International law requires proportionality. Broad mandatory coordination is not legally required and may actually risk infringing other rights, which I will be analyzing. Moving on, this helps me introduce one new argument supporting our case. Ladies and gentlemen, we support the notion that mandatory cooperation threatens fundamental rights. International human rights law requires that regulations balance multiple rights and remain proportionate. Mandatory digital cooperation risks harming several protected rights. First, the right to privacy under Article 17 of the ICCPR can be threatened by cross-border data sharing, surveillance, or broad retention obligations. Second, freedom of expression under Article 19 of the ICCPR may be limited when harmonized content rules lead to over-removal of lawful speech. Third, freedom of association under Article 22 of the ICCPR may also be restricted when compliance burdens make it harder for civil society and online communities to organize. Fourth, Article 15, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, protects participation in digital life and access to scientific knowledge, which may be reduced by overregulation. These, ladies and gentlemen, are only some examples, not even having mentioned that coordinator rules can be influenced by political expediency or even create pressure for developing countries by globally powerful states. International law requires proportionality. A general obligation to cooperate would risk protecting some interests while unnecessarily limiting others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now hear the second rebuttal in favor. University of Lusaka, you have 2 minutes.
Am I audible?
You are.
Yes, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have one thing to understand, that it is highly necessary for states to cooperate when it comes to regulating digital and knowledge-based economies. Because why? Developing nations are going to be affected deeply because their laws are going to be undermined by those of bigger states. We take, for example, the case of the government of the United States against Gary McKinnon, whereby Gary McKinnon breached into the United States military and the NASA system and caused damage that costed them up to over 800,000. That meant that there were no regulations which regulated the laws. And when the case came to the courts, it was hard to come to a conclusion. Why? Because there were no regulations which all state parties cooperated with. So cyber criminality strategically exploits states and jurisdiction with weaker enforcement and limited mutual assistance, and with the capacity and the outdated laws. So crimes that are now in the digital era are committed beyond borders. It is difficult to investigate and stop them. Without the treaty obligations, mutual legal assistance depends on diplomatic goodness. And this is what the team opposition is saying. And theft and other criminality are going to be what? Are going to be protected because there is no legal regulations which protect them. So now, without binding obligations to cooperate, countries are left vulnerable, especially the developing countries, in a digital ocean without a uniform rule which then protects them. So a powerful state may be able to mitigate circumstances like these, and however, the developing countries cannot. So the obligation to cooperate is not hidden, as team opposition is saying, in fine prints such as in the Convention Against Cybercrime or in the WTO GATS. However, it is there to make sure that all nations are protected, all come together and cooperate. That means that criminality is lessened. With this, I rest my case.
Thank you. And now to hear the second rebuttal in the against position, National Kapodistrian University of Athens, you have 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Team Proposition also argued that international and EU law created general duty for cooperation, to which we would like to respond that while some EU and international instruments do encourage cooperation, they do not create a general binding legal duty for all states. Most frameworks are voluntary, region-specific, or dependent on consent. States remain free to regulate digital and knowledge-based economies within their own legal systems. Moving forward, I would like to submit one new argument to our case. We believe, ladies and gentlemen, that due diligence requires harm prevention and not harmonized regulation. Due diligence obligation in international law, as affirmed by the Corfu Channel case, requires states to take reasonable steps to prevent their territory from being used to cause specific and foreseeable transboundary harm. It is a limited obligation focused on harm prevention. Crucially, ladies and gentlemen, due diligence does not require states to harmonize their domestic regulatory systems or cooperate in shaping shared economic rules. International law draws a clear line between preventing harm and coordinating broad regulatory frameworks. The obligation is satisfied when a state acts within its own legal system to address risks and not when it aligns its laws with others. In the digital context, this means that states must prevent identifiable harms such as cyber attacks or data misuse, but they are not legally required to coordinate digital economic regulation. Cooperation might be useful, ladies and gentlemen, but due diligence does not transform it into a legal obligation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes the rebuttal stage. We'll now pass the floor to the University of Lusaka. You have 2 minutes for your conclusion.
I'll start in 3, 2, 1. The opposition has asked you to treat this as a normative aspiration. We have demonstrated that this is a positive legal fact. All states have an obligation to cooperate in these regulatory measures. Cybercrime affects all nations, not just a select few. Human rights are affected. Developing economies are affected. We have shown you undeniable evidence that a number of states have signed the United Nations Convention Against Cybercrime and the WTO JIS. All these create an obligation which requires cooperation. It is a standard when it comes to international law that all treaties which are ratified that they pose a binding obligation that all nations should bound themselves to and respect. This motion does not seek to invest an obligation. It recognizes one and which we as team proposition affirm. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your conclusion. We'll now pass the floor to the National Kapodistrian University of Athens. You also have 2 minutes for your conclusion.
Honorable Chair, distinguished judges, the proposition has shown that cooperation is a desirable political choice, but they have failed to prove it should be binding and enforceable. But our case rests on 4 fundamental legal pillars. First, the absence of general obligation in international law. Programmatic language, like that in the UN Charter, does not create self-executing duties. To call a political aspiration a legal mandate is to ignore the very foundation of treaty law. Expanding this argument, the approach of state practice proves that states opt in and out of cooperative frameworks because voluntariness preserves flexibility. Second, in contrast to the previous point, there does exist a positive obligation for due diligence. As our speaker clarified, international law mandates a result, the prevention of transboundary harm, and not a specific cooperative method or harmonized regulation. Third, state sovereignty. Sovereignty remains the default rule, granting states the right to design their own internal economic systems. Finally, the protection of fundamental rights and proportionality. Coordinated, one-size-fits-all regulation often lacks the proportionality required by the international human rights law and risks imposing the political will of powerful states on developing nations. Ladies and gentlemen, in the digital age, flexibility is the engine of innovation, and sovereignty is the guardrail of democracy. We must not mistake a political desire for a legal reality. Benefit is not law. Necessity is not obligation. The opposition stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your conclusion. You can all now relax. You're no longer graded after this fight. Well done on your first debate match of this 9th edition. You can all relax. As tradition goes, we'll now pass the floor to each of you for a short reflection on the topic debate or the preparations. So starting first with perhaps University of Lusaka, Ms. Daunwenasi Kabondo, how did you find the debate, the topic, and did you perhaps hear some of the arguments your team prepared for the opposing arguments as well?
Hello, everyone. Am I visible and audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. That felt like a very spirited debate, especially because our points were so similar. Like the points they had that we practiced for were so exact that it felt so like it felt like we were in battle as we went against each other. But moreover, all of that, it was so exciting, and I'm glad to have debated against all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. From National and Kapodistrian University of Athens, Misika, the same question. How did you prepare for debate, perhaps, and did you hear similar arguments from the other team that your team also prepared?
Yes, it was very interesting. I found it also to be a very relevant topic. And also on the human rights argument, it was really interesting to see how we approached it from the two different sides and how it could be argued for and against. But it was a really nice experience, and it was really interesting to be informed on the topic.
Thank you for sharing. Ms. Mukeja, how did you find the debate? Did you hear from, did you already have some familiarity with the topic from your studies before?
Okay, so for me, I think the debate was quite interesting, and considering the fact that I'm currently taking international law, so it was very helpful for my studies, I must say. And the opposing side were very good speakers. I really liked their speeches, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Christopoulos, how did you find the debate, and were you perhaps already familiar with the topic?
It was a really interesting topic because it combines different kinds of subjects we have in Law School Athens. For example, international and European law was a combination both of them to this topic, and also from aspects of private law that includes data protection, that it also combines public law. So it was a great combination of many law school fields that we have examined in different parts, and it was a perfect way to bond all these parts together into a really relevant topic.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Ndlela, from University of Lusaka, how did you find the topic, the debate today?
The topic was quite interesting. There was a lot to read on, going to soft law, hard law, everything, and the cases. It was really interesting, and the opposing team were very great speakers, and they had strong points, a bit similar to what we had on our side. And I had fun and a bit nervous, of course, but it was quite interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Ms. Kataki from National Kapodistrian University of Athens, how did you find the debate, the match today? Topic?
I think that first of all, the topic was really interesting because it has the more modern side of the international law, the data protection, the AI technology, and also all that combined with the basic fundamental rights of international law. So I think that all the process was really interesting, and it was a great debate today.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Well, on the side of organizing team, I think I can speak for all of us present here and also those that will be or maybe are already watching the live stream. Well done, really, for researching and executing your research during the debate today. For most of you, it's really a new format. So really well done and congratulations. You'll then be facing in day 2 and day 3 with the rest of your group's members. Similar if you're following the current Olympics as the group sports there in the championships. Well, there's always, of course, in the wrap up, since we have the opportunity also to connect your teams a bit more. So I'll be passing the floor generally to your teams. You can ask or you can choose which of your members answer first. And the very first question is, why did you decide to represent your university in the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament? And perhaps how are you selected for your team? Perhaps starting with the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens.
I can answer
You want?
if, or,
Yes.
okay. I found it to be a really nice opportunity to continue debating as a student, as a university student, because I really enjoyed debating as a high school student, but I didn't have a chance to participate in a debate competition in university. And I think it also poses as a great opportunity to explore subjects we're being taught in school, but in a more free and flexible environment. So that's for me. I don't know if anybody else wants to give their point of view also.
Mr. Christopoulos, maybe?
Yes, it's a great honor to represent the National Kapodistrian University, and also I used to do a lot of Greek debating, so it was a great challenge for me to improve my skills in English debate, combining also my studies, my legal studies.
Ms. Kentucky?
So yes, I was enjoying the debate as a student in school. So this was my first time doing this as a university student. So I think it was a great experience. It is a great experience, and we're honored to be here for the Kapodistrian University of Athens.
Thank you for sharing. For University of Lusaka's team, why did you decide to represent your university in the tournament this year? And what does being selected to represent your university mean to you as the students of your faculty?
Okay, thank you. For us at the University of Lusaka to be selected in this competition, we had an inter-university debate competition. So for us to be here is an honor, and we are very grateful and thankful to have the opportunity to debate against so many wonderful debaters, as well as it being a learning opportunity as some of us are currently taking or about to take international law. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for me. Thank you.
Switch off the camera, switch off the camera.
Thank you. And perhaps also your colleagues, Mr. Ndela, perhaps?
Yeah, hello. It's an honor to take part in the tournament because you get the exposure and you get to read more. So that means when you're now going to our studies, you would have read more on the subject. So it's quite interesting and it's exciting. And I think as a debater, it's working on the skill and learning more critical thinking and how to research better. Yeah, so I'm honored to be taking part here, and I'm honored that the university gave me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And also your colleague?
Okay, so for me, as my colleagues have already spoken to or rather alluded to, I believe this is a very important tournament for us, considering the fact that for us to be here as a team or to be picked to be part of this Hague debate was because we had tryouts. And for us to have these tryouts, obviously it means the people that selected us, the previous people that have debated before us were our judges, and also the lecturers. So for them to obviously pick us, it means they saw something in us and they believe in us. So basically, I think it is a very great opportunity for us, and it really means a lot for us representing our school because they trusted in us. And yeah, we'll definitely work towards it. And it will be an opportunity to interact and network with everyone of them.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. For a final wrap up, I'm passing the floor to Professor Lohanch, also the networking question.
Yes, so I have a last question for both teams, and after we'll conclude. So let's say if the team from Lusaka, from the university in Zambia, comes to Athens, so this is a question for the team in Greece, what they should visit first, they should try, or they should eat from your, from the city, let's say. So what would be the first thing they should see or eat? So this is a question for, I don't know, who wants to answer in the Athenian team?
I think they should definitely visit us inside. We can be the tour guide for them if they want. It would be a great honor for us to show the ancient site like Acropolis, and of course end up in a traditional tavern to try gyros and pasticcio and traditional moussaka and traditional food.
And I would like to add something more. I also think it's a must to visit southern Athens and have a stroll by the seaside, grab a coffee, especially at spring. It is amazing, the scenery, have a drink also. So much fun.
And we can't forget, I think, forget the nightlife here in Athens. I think that it's a must for us here, especially in summer. So I think that we have to do a bit clubbing.
Thank you. Same question. The first time that the Greek team will come to Zambia, what they should visit in Lusaka or around Lusaka? So the question is for you in Lusaka.
Okay, so if they decide to come to Lusaka, I think the first place they should visit is the National Museum. So it has very different artifacts, a lot about our history, and it explains more about that. And maybe with the meals, I think there are a lot of traditional Zambian foods and Zambian drinks that are very tasty. So yeah.
And your colleagues wants to add something?
Yeah. One thing I like about Zambia is the Victoria Falls. It's very beautiful there. So I think that would be a nice place to go to.
Yeah, I think they should also take their hand in traveling through our national spots, because we have a lot of wildlife and we have a lot of tourist spots that are specifically for seeing the wildlife and eating our traditional food. So I think they would really enjoy that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this is the opportunity to encourage you to keep contact after this match. So this is maybe the first time, but maybe not the last time that you will be in contact. As well, think about your career, having someone you know as well for your in different jurisdictions. That is really important in your career when you be jurist. So don't hesitate, of course, to connect, through LinkedIn or ask us. There will be as well a networking session after the group phase with everybody, so including the teams you have debated with. So many thanks for this match. Congratulations, that was your first match in the competition. The next match will be in 2 weeks on another topic, another theme as well. And as well, I want to correct something I said earlier. In the group C, so in your group, the two other universities are the University of Waikato within New Zealand and King's College London. So you are in the group C, and these are the next opponents for you in the day 2. So many thanks. You will receive in a few days, so I mean this week probably, the results of your match, and we keep contact for the day 2 match very soon. Many thanks in Athens and many thanks in Lusaka. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.